Tyler? It's Tyler I need. Live video is starting, okay. First I have to find Tyler. Good morning. How are we? Disconcerting when Facebook, the minute you say hello and wave, Facebook thing pops up and says, create another event. The critics are brutal. I know I keep holding up fame. I know I do that. And I know, because obviously I'm the one who picks up the book. And I promise you, this is not a blatant beg for you to get the book. It's because I'm researching so much backstory stuff for when I get together with you in these mornings and days and afternoons, whatever time you're watching, because every so often we stumble across an opportunity to discover things we didn't see coming. And you know, if we're too focused on the agenda, and we don't look up from what we're doing, we can miss so many things. And I think, you know, I spent a lot of my life not looking up. I was in such a frantic hurry to get everything done that I thought I could get done in time. I was just too worried that I wasn't going to be able to cover everything in time. And click too low FPS. Thank you. Always. And this thing I say to people a lot now. I say it because I learned. There's a reason why the ocean hits the shore and then recedes. It has to go away and recharge in order to come back and do it again. It can't just keep hitting the beach on and on and on forever. It's not the way it works. It's not the way anything works. And right now, boy oh boy, we are seeing a lot of people who are spending a lot of time hitting the beach constantly. Now I just have to pause and I have to go here and refresh this other screen I have, this other monitor I have, because I want to be able to comment. There we are. I'm live now. So I'm clicking that. And then I have to mute that. And so now, there I am. If you've found the time to watch, you are able to comment. And as I look up from time to time to see if you're just sitting and watching or you're commenting, I'm going to do my best to stay on top of that so that I can answer you in real time. What's amazing about this opportunity of figuring out how to have two monitors instead of one is that there's a very good chance that if I keep practicing this, as I keep practicing this, aha, Jeremy, good morning, Jeremy. I wouldn't mind being at the beach right about now. Jeremy, you, I feel your pain. Can you tell me where you are? Can you post on the comment where you're thinking about the beach from in this moment so that I can, I'm just going to figure out how to get my mouse over there and give that a little like so that that we can all know where we're all from. I got a message earlier from Bill, who is in Minnesota, saying it was minus everything. And I got a message from Thomas in Illinois, who saw the crazy image of my Glam Abbey tights. And Thomas is famous for wearing kilts, and he said if you could get those printed in over the knee socks, I would rock a pair of those with my kilt. And boys and girls, yes, he would, and yes, I'm going to look into it. So back to my goal today. My goal today is to talk about how we get caught up in the downhill rush. We've all gotten caught up. Jeremy, near Detroit, 8 degrees. That's 8 degrees American though, right? That's 8 degrees US. What is that in the other numbers? 8 degrees US. When we get caught up in the downhill rush, what we try to do is run faster than the momentum. It's a logical thing to do, except that the momentum is keeping pace with us because we are the momentum. And there's no way that ends well. Guaranteed. I can vouch. There's no way that ends well. And I want to, normally I talk about a theme, which I just sort of introduced. Now I want to tell you the story early, and then I'll explain why. Okay? So, a long time ago, back in the mists of time, I was working on You Can't Live on television, and Les Lai, who played Dad and everybody, and I were doing a live event somewhere, and there were these local newspapers with classified ads for things. Kind of like today, you go into the convenience store to pay for your gas, and there's a thing on the board and you find out if that couch has sold yet. Well, those local newspapers, there's a big pile of them. And we were at this outdoor event where you could come and we would autograph something or say hello, whatever. And there was a lull and there was nobody coming. And I picked up one of the newspapers. And I saw this ad for a hobby farm for sale. Hobby farm. Glamorous shoes, feather boas, fascinators. I'm looking at an ad for a hobby farm. Okay. And I thought there was a typo because it said way too many acres and outbuildings for far too little money. So I showed it to Les and I said, what do you think? Because I was a renter at the time. I showed it to him. I said, what do you think about that? And he looked at it and he looked at me. He said, yes, because the first thing I think of when I look at you is hobby farm. And I'm saying, yeah, I know, but look at the price. I mean, I could afford that. And frankly, I could afford it. In terms of numbers, I could afford it. What I couldn't really afford was the craziness, the crazy idea that I would actually be able to do something with a hobby farm, because I'm good at a few things, and singing and hobby farms are the top 6 that I'm not good at. So, because I've known people who had cows and chickens and horses, and I have been to their places, and I've wandered through the barns, and I've said to myself, get home. And so anyway, I bought the farm. I purchased the farm. It had everything going for it for me, as you might expect, and then some. It turns out that I tend to do everything wrong 3 times until I see, yeah, 3. So I was a constant source of mild amusement for the local farmers and everybody who went to the co-op, which was not just the local farmers, and I was there for 6 years, and I learned many things. One day, and so by the way, this hobby farm too is set. The hobby farm was a 30-minute drive from the nation's capital, where, I had lived and worked, which was great. 30 minutes, not that bad. Anyway, I had a car die, and I had a mechanic friend of mine sell me another car. And he said, you just have to keep your eye on all the lights and bells and whistles on the dash. And I said, okay. And then probably forgot to do that, because hobby farm singing lights by the dashboard thing. So I was rushing to get to the local mall before the stores closed one day for some essentials. And I was driving this car. And I pulled in to this is the lane you drive in thing. And it had concrete barriers on the other side. And I was driving down this lane when the car did a most amazing thing. It had, until that moment, had first, second, third, reverse, and park gears. And then after this loud noise, all it had was neutral, 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 neutral. And it would move. It didn't go anywhere. And it was kind of a late November, early December, and the weather was nasty, and it was cold, and there was sort of a rime of frost on the ground. It was just a day, you know. And so I leapt out of the car and ran around the back, because I'm on the entrance lane, and there's concrete on the other side, and there's a line beginning to form behind me, because everybody's come in at the last minute to pick up whatever before supper. And I, you know, put my hand up like this, and, you know, and then I went around the back of the car, and I put my hands firmly on the trunk, and I pushed as hard as I could. And I lost traction. The car didn't move. I lost traction, and I slipped and landed on the concrete on both knees simultaneously. And it was probably the most excruciating sensation I'd ever experienced. And I'm there holding onto the trunk and thinking, and I couldn't move. I couldn't move. And I said out loud, "Oh God, I gotta be able to get up. And like that, my prayers were answered. The van behind me, the driver of the van hit the horn on the van, which was situated roughly 5 inches from my ear. And so I went from kneeling and praying to standing, alert and in pain, thanks to the horn. And I was just beyond myself, beyond. And I turned on whoever this son of a what's-it was to yell, "Who do you think you are?" And I froze, because the person who had not wondered if I was okay, but chose to hit the horn, was a woman. And the van was full of young children. And I channeled immediately. I went from pain, astonishment, to no longer the inner Viking, the outer Viking. And I yelled at the driver unhelpfully. And the next thing that happened, I can't even begin to explain. 2 really large guys were suddenly right there beside me, right there. And I didn't see them coming, because I was so focused on my pain and my car and the van driver. But all of a sudden, there they were. I'm going to pause for a second. "Christopher, the older I get, the less I can take the cold." It doesn't get that terribly cold in New York, thank goodness. Parts of Canada are like Russia in the winter. "Christopher, you're absolutely right." and not the balmy southern parts of Russia either. So back to my story. All of a sudden, there I am. Now, these guys were truck drivers. I could tell, because they were wearing truckers' hats, and they had their company jackets on. And I had actually toyed with the idea of being a trucker. And then I took the exam, I took the test, I learned how to actually drive one of these things. You know, by the way, when you're sitting in the driver's seat and you're attached to a trailer, if you look out the side window, it looks exactly like you've accidentally hooked up to the warehouse. Because it's like... So anyway, I took the training so that I could do the training video, and then I said, well, since I took the training, I might as well take the test. And the only thing I want to say about the examiner is that he was the kindest, most forgiving human being I had met in a long time with a fabulous sense of humor, and all he said was, "You're never going to do this for a living, right?" And I said, "No, of course not." And then he passed me. I went back to the school and the thing, and I said, "I passed." And the teachers, everybody, you passed. And I said, "Well, I'm not gonna do it." So the thing that I understood when I took the course is that truck drivers are hardworking, and like a lot of us, and they often don't get the respect they deserve. They put in long hours, and sometimes it's dangerous, and the weather conditions and whatnot, and they have to deal with a lot of complicated paperwork. And I met a ton of them. I met a ton of them when I was driving back and forth, commuting from city to city to do my work, and I had a CB radio, and they would call out to me, and I would answer them. It was an amazing community, really an amazing community of hard workers. Anyway, there's these two men, and they're huge. They're like 300 pounds each, and they're standing there. And one of them said, "You know what? The talk isn't working. Let's just move your car." And I said, "Well, good luck with that." And the other guy said, "No, but seriously, the talk isn't working because that driver's not listening." That's right. Doesn't matter if you're talking if no one's listening. Doesn't matter if you're talking if the right people aren't listening. Anyway, these two amazing guys moved my car. They basically just looked at the car, and the car said, "Right, sorry," and kind of moved itself, but they just moved the car out of the way. And then they were incredible. They helped me get in touch with my mechanic, and they arranged a pickup, and they drove me home, and everything was great. And there are times when you think about moments like that, and you wonder where they come from, where people who intervene, who just catch you at the right time, when you're actually there, present in the moment, able to listen and willing to listen. They're there, and they help navigate to calmer waters. And it's an extraordinary thing when it happens. And I would never have thought about it that way, except recently when I was talking to somebody about all this upheaval and this unrest and this fear and uncertainty and anger and frustration and all this stuff. And this friend of mine said, "That's because no one's listening. And if they are listening, it doesn't feel like they're listening. And there's nothing more frightening when no matter how loud you yell, people don't appear to be able to hear you." And I thought, that's a great topic. It really is. So that was the first thing that happened, and that was the story. And then when I was doing stand-up comedy, I used to talk about it. And I then, when my faith was restored in humanity, and I rejoined my village of people, I realized that I wasn't alone. That the person who was alone, truly, was the driver of the van, yelling, creating a remarkable role model for the children in the van. Because yelling isn't how you get people to hear you. It isn't how you get people to sympathize. What it does get you is people taking sides. And taking sides doesn't actually solve the issue, right? So that was the first thing that happened. The second thing that happened was, for some reason, I was offered an opportunity to hear a song that I've loved since I first heard it in the 1970s. And it's a song by a band called Redbone, and the song is called "Come and Get Your Love." And it's a great song. It's a morning thing, and and if I could sing, I'd be singing it now. Rest assured, calm yourselves. I won't be singing now. Come and get your love. And I thought, okay, I want to tell you who is listening, always listening. your your inner your inner voice, your inner person, your inner child is always listening, always with you, always. And what you say and do sometimes causes your inner child to basically roll its eyes at you. Because when you're yelling and shouting, you're getting it wrong. What the inner child is saying is, come and get your love. It's inside. We start there. All the stuff we add on top is stuff we pick up along the way that may or may not be valid or relevant. It may be fattening. It may cause cavities. It may make you look short and wide, which I have never seen anybody want to look. So why aren't we tapping into that? Why are we going outside for validation? Why are we leaning to the loudest, angriest voice? Well, the answer is that the loudest, angriest voice looks and sounds like the alpha in the tribe. And once upon a time, a long time ago, we only had this little kind of mini brain that was only capable of very basic functions. And what it understood was survival. You're in a cave. Outside the cave, there are saber-toothed whatnots. And their goal is dinner. Also, coincidentally, dinner. And so the last thing you want to do is go outside the cave all alone. If you have to go out for, hunting and gathering, fine, but you don't go alone. So the goal, the primary primitive goal, is to be the one farthest from the door of the cave and welcomed by the tribe. And who runs the tribe? The alpha, the strongest. The strongest are the ones who dictate who survives. So our external validation is to please the alpha. It makes sense. The trouble is that those rules were ingrained in us when we operated with that one brain. And at that time, that one brain was only dealing with one tribe. We only had one tribe to belong to conform to, one alpha to please. It's not the same now. The other thing that is a challenge for that brain, which still operates, I mentioned it in one of my previous videos, that's the brain that drives the car on long distances to free up the front brain, the thinking brain, to decide whether or not we should have pork chops for supper, right? And if you don't believe me, think back on long drives and tell me you can remember every single mile, because you can't. It's because the primitive brain was saying, oh, look, I'll do it. You'll do it. The primitive brain only knows the present tense. When it goes into its Rolodex to figure out what we do in times like this, it doesn't know that times like this were a week, a month, a year, a decade ago. It only knows that this is what we do in times like this. The good news is that we can slowly reprogram that brain. We can't get it to think in multiple tribes, and we can't get it to think in past, present, and future. But we can get it to look up something and say, this is what we do in times like this. We can teach it a new trick. How awesome is that? So, the first thing thinking brain has to do is pay attention to the fact that there are many tribes that we belong to, that we join. There's the family, there's the original tribe. And then there are friends when we go to school. We go from home, we go to school. That's another tribe. It's not the same. Even if our brothers and sisters go to the same school, it's still a different tribe. And there's a different alpha that we have to listen to. And then if we live in a community, if it's more than one cave, or it's the caves in the suburbs, and we want to be a good neighbor, then we join that tribe. And if we find a partner who doesn't come from our tribe, and we get together with that partner, then on big holidays, we have to split our time between our tribe and their tribe. And if you've ever had to decide who's having the first Christmas dinner at whose house, you know what I'm talking about. So what has to happen, Jeremy Wright in Detroit, saying Abby, oh Jeremy, what a troublemaker you are. What has to happen is we have to juggle, we have to start recognizing and prioritizing our tribes. It's not easy, especially when the primitive brain is saying, do what the alpha says. Okay, but if we belong to 10 tribes, then we have to try and divide ourselves into 10 in order to please each one of those alphas. It's crazy making. So that began to happen a long, long time ago. And we don't really ever think about it or talk about it. The fact is, there is a voice we can listen to. It's the voice that is 100% with us all the time. It's the inner child. The inner child gives us unconditional love. All we have to do is say, that's who I need to be talking to. That's who I need to be having my conversation with, my strategic planning conversation with. I don't need to go out into the world and offer unconditional love to everybody. It's not possible today. What I do need to do is start where I am and forgive me and stop trying to please everyone else. If you have a minute and you go on one of your social media platforms that you like, you'll see people desperately tap dancing to try and please everyone. I started a business, and well, I have a day job, of course. I have a day job. Everybody has a day job. But I started this business, and it's amazing. And I'm going to be doing it kind of on the kitchen table, and the kids are so excited, and it's just, we're going to have such fun. And then I also volunteer, 3 nights a week. I volunteer because I think I need to give back, And then, well, it's crazy. I know it's crazy, and these things are so silly. But I just love the whole idea of getting fit, So I've joined a program, and it's incredible. I've already lost an inch, and I've only been doing it for a month. Okay, so see, that woman sounds crazy. She's got a full-time job. She has kids, which means she has a place where they all live that has to be maintained, with food prepared and clothing cleaned and things dusted and gas put in the car, and why does that light keep coming on the dash? And then she has this business that she's going to run, and then she volunteers 3 nights a week, and then she's doing a fitness regime. She probably also threw all the food out from the pantry. Okay, that's madness. And what happens is you burn out. Why? Because you can't please all of the people all of the time. No one can. That's why it's a cliche. You can only please some of the people some of the time. And the person you have to please first is the person who's with you all the time. Your inner child. And the inner child is just waiting for you with unconditional love, quietly singing in the background. Come and get your love. So I printed this today. I'm going to put it in front of me. Can I do that? Okay. So this is a thing I find, and I use it a lot. It's a smart art graphic if you have Word, and I'm sure if you're using a Mac you'll find something similar. And what you can do is you can fill each of these circles with, pardon me for just a second, Anne, you made it to alive! Yes! Wave your tattoo, darling. Wave your tattoo at me. So this is my go-to for planning. And what I do with it is I put me in the center, and these are all the things that I need to do. These are all the things that are on my agenda every day. And I prioritize them. And here's how I prioritize them. The one at the top, that's my inner child. Everything else comes next. I have a little chat with my inner child. My inner child is saying, come and get your love. And I'm right there every morning. I'm doing it before I get up. I'm pausing and I'm saying, okay, I gotta love what I'm doing. I gotta love what I'm doing, because if I don't, what am I doing? I don't have to please other people. I have to bring my best game for me. I want to be proud of what I do. I want to be able to look at it and say, yeah, all the other stuff is really important. Paying the rent, losing those 5 pounds by Friday because, the pants won't fit. All of that is important. But if you go in with the idea that you don't like you, you're annoyed with you, 7 people told you you were this, that, or the other, you're not ever going to go in with your sword and shield at the right angle. You're always going to go in second-guessing. And second-guessing is not how you win. It's certainly not how you bring your best. There is one time in my career when I lost my focus. It created one of the funniest moments in my television. And it's the sketch on You Can't Do That when I'm dressed as the Statue of Liberty. And the reason I lost my focus is I was showing off backstage behind the door, having my picture taken, and I was vamping. And all of a sudden the floor director said, "Go!" And I forgot how high I was holding the lamp. And I swan through the door and broke the lamp. And there are impressionable children in front of me and a very expensive agenda going on, and my producer pulling her hair out by the roots. And I lost it, and I started to laugh, and I couldn't stop. Because I was so ill-prepared and so unprofessional and so wrong. Because I hadn't given 100% of my love to the thing I was doing that mattered. I got sidetracked. So what I did after that, I laughed at myself. I forgave myself. I apologized to everyone. And then I gave it my best shot on the second go-around. And that's what we all get to do. There's always a second go-around. You know why I know that? Have you ever heard that expression, happily ever after? Yeah. After what? Lunch? Is it over? Have we arrived at happily ever after? No. No. Because there's going to be another one in a second. The reason I picked up the Fame book earlier, now I don't know what I did with it. Yes, the reason I picked up the Fame book earlier is that one of my kids who I interviewed, Tyler Westerland, he said to me one time, if you're chasing fame, you're doing it wrong. I said, what does that mean? And he said, it's a mirage. It's the wet spot on the highway. Fall in love with the race. Fall in love with the challenge. Fall in love with the benchmarks, with the personal wins in the moment. But don't chase it in order to reach some magic end, because there isn't one. So, my lovelies, that's today's lesson. What do you think about that? And by the way, do you know anybody who has a pink and orange jacket? What you can't see is there's lime green bits on the bottom. So, today, Tuesday, at the time of this recording, it's minus everything. I've seen all you lovely people chiming in, and I'm so glad I was able to at least say hi. I'd love you to like and share this. I'd love you to tell your friends how interesting this is, that Mom is actually a person who talks about stuff and makes mistakes. I'd love it if you went over to my YouTube channel and subscribed so that I can build this and I can create our bigger village. And I want to see you on Thursday, which is 2 days from now, because I have more to say about your inner child. And I guess what I want to leave you with is the new anthem. Okay? This is our new anthem. Come and get your love. Be good to you.